how do leaders make this actually happen the way it should happen? Somewhere outside Africa, this is a serious issue. So I was really expecting a lot of corporate institutions to be present this morning. All the same, this is the first summit in Ghana, and I'm sure that subsequent ones is going to be bigger and better. But my call to you all is that whatever you hear from here today, go and preach the word outside and be the change that you see. Thank you very much.
Dr. Genevieve Duncan Ogobi, please, once again, a round of applause for her. Lead consultant, Carbon Edge, and the call has been made. As leaders, we need to go out there so that we can spread the message when it comes to environmental, social, and governance issues. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move on as we welcome the lead consultant discovery leadership masterclass, Mr. Frank Edu for the welcome address.
We decided to put out a program like this to fashion out the need for more sensitization for the people and for the business community to be aware of the environment and the social and the governance issues so that we can deepen the discourse for success. Next year we will have another version, a version that will be much more, we take it to another level. So we pray that as we come out there, as people or businesses, we will need your support in this direction to be able to drive this course. In our quest to bring the issue of ESG to the forefront of the business community, we realize that the knowledge about ESG is a bit on the low side. We pray that as we take this course, we will get the support that is needed. On this note, we welcome all of us into our first edition of Discovery ESG Sustainability Summit. You are welcome.
Many international agreements have pledged more climate finance for adaptation. The agreements recognize the need to support vulnerable countries that have suffered climate damage. There are other promises to end deforestation, reduce methane emission, mobilize finance around net zero. For its part, Ghana has pledged more ambitious goals for renewable energy usage and emission reduction in the capital, Accra, and across the country. These all sounds good, but when we add everything up, the world is still on the path to a temperature rise well above 2 degrees Celsius. The world is already seeing the climate change impact that includes storms, floods, wildfires, displacements, and damage to human health, economies, and businesses. We have a serious job of work to do. Accra and many cities in the world also experience pollution and waste. Ladies and gentlemen, we need urgent transformation in these areas to address the ESG risk. We must tackle the earth, environmental emergencies, and human well-being as one indivisible challenge. We must transform our economy and financial system to power the shift to sustainability. We cannot leave these threats all up to government to solve. We need a whole of society action for a whole of society programs. We all need to take responsibility in every aspect of our work and professional lives.
The change we seek in our world today begins with you and I. If not you, then who? If not now, when? If not right here, right there where you're seated, in your places of work, in your spaces of authority, then where? Those were the words of late Martin Luther King. God rest his soul. My name is Canon Otto. I'm a sustainability consultant and a sustainable development goal advocate. It gives me so much delight to see that the sustainable development goals, which has been slow to adopt and practice, has now been transitioned from a cause of advocacy to mainstream. It gives me so much delight to see that companies and corporate organizations have adopted it and are championing it, are spearheading it. It has become a metric, a yardstick, an indices for measuring success in the corporate world. But how are we faring? Are we just doing this on paper to get a good score? Or are we really concerned and enthusiastic about this? Sometime last year, in 2021, Elon Musk said that the ESG evaluation methodology is flawed. Why did he say so? He said that it lacks focus on companies' impact in the real world environment. Does it really lack that focus? Maybe, maybe not. I'll share an experience with you. Some time ago, we have advocated and clamored that a certain beverage company in Nigeria supports the recycling industries, support recycling companies, because these recyclers clean up the mess that they make from plastics that they use to package their drinks. After so much push and yearning and appeal, they decided to. But now they support recyclers somewhere in the big city. They support cleanup projects somewhere in the big city, not everywhere. And then they take pictures, beautiful pictures, some of the best pictures, with some of the best cameras, and they put it in their blogs, in their websites, in their ESG and sustainability reports, and they say this is what they are doing nationally. That's not nationally. That's being done in a little space, in about 5% of the landmass of the country. That's greenwashing. Are they really enthusiastic about this, or they're just doing it for the book? Who knows, maybe that's why I lost my dog. My big 55 kg Neapolitan Mastiff dog that had lived with us for over 10 years. It was practically part of the family. But it swallowed the plastic bottle cover and it got stuck in its intestine. Very sad times for the family. But just like my dog, many other animals are dying because of the negligence of most of the captains of industries. Sometime, a certain company I worked with in UK, I won't mention the name, they noticed that customers are interested in buying sustainable products. So they tell you that their products are over 50% cooked, their foods are over 50% ready, that you don't need to spend so much energy in cooking it. And they don't tell you how it got cooked from 0 to 50 or over 50. They tell you that their product are packaged with paper, not plastic. That's because when it's delivered to you, the consumer, in your house, it's delivered with paper. But we that worked with them, you see plastics used to pack the products all over the warehouse. They don't tell you that. They tell you that you don't need to worry, that you can just order the product and it comes straight from the warehouse to your house. You don't need to spend on transportation. You don't need to spend burn fuel and diesel in energy to come by it. That they use electric vehicles to deliver. But do they tell you, or they're not aware of the human rights violations and child labor going on in places like Congo during mining for cobalt, for these electric batteries? Adopting the ESGs and putting them into real-time practice, genuinely and sincerely, is really benefiting and is so glaring. From reduced regulatory and legal intervention to cost reduction in operations, from higher employee productivity to top-line growth in terms of sales. The list goes on. And we see that investors are also pulling out from companies that don't uphold the ESGs. Sometime last year, a global investor called BlackRock, which is just one of many, decided not to invest in companies that are generating 25% of their revenue from fossil fuel and coal. These are all super good and amazing to hear, and should serve as some motivation and some hope for companies that have not yet adopted the ESG, or for those that have adopted it and are not genuinely, sincerely implementing it. I want to implore you all to not just do this for the books, to not just do this to have a good scorecard in terms of your corporate social responsibility, but to become an advocate for it, to push for it, to sensitize your staff, your household, your community, to drive the change, because that change begins with you. And I will leave you all with the watchword: practice what you preach. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
I'd like to read a little bit about the distinguished gentleman that you listened to. His name is Otto Cannon. He's a multiple award-winning sustainability and environmental consultant committed to restoring our fast-degrading environment from breakage, advocating for the propagation of sustainability across the world, and driving a lasting change through sustainability policy reforms across and amongst governments, corporations, and communities. With over 10 years plus experience as a social entrepreneur, community organizer, and sustainability consultant, and many more that he has been working on. Before I introduce our speaker, ladies and gentlemen, let me quickly acknowledge our sponsors, particularly Just One Group. A round of applause for them. And our media relations or partners, Business and Financial Times. Please a round of applause for them too. And media sponsors, GTV, Metro TV. Ladies and gentlemen, here to speak to all of us, the role of leadership in leading business transitions and change, adaptability, and coping for sustainability through ESG framework. I present to you Dr. Victor Amin.
Indeed, the first speaker indicated we are all supposed to be ambassadors for this global cause. It's all is grounded in the fact that our very survival depends on it. Let's cast our mind the current issues we are dealing with in our country. We can say menace. It's a survival issue. But to a very large extent, the requisite action and commitment from all of us, we all know it's not forthcoming. We are looking at it from today's perspective, the benefits that will endure to us, but tomorrow won't be the difference. I was reading a few days ago online that sooner than later, I think from one of the medical doctors in Ghana, indicating that sooner than later we're going to begin to experience new diseases in our country, as experienced by other countries like Japan, Asia, sometime. So issues of environmental, social, and governance are very critical to the sustainable operations and the survival of our humankind. So that is why I am personally passionate about it.
and we all have to play a critical role. You agree with me, just to commence my presentation on the role of leadership. You agree with me, everything rises and falls on leadership. It is not about who is to do what, it's all about leadership. The policies, the strategies, everything we need to do is in place, but everything falls or rises and falls on leadership. And you again agree with me that wherever we find ourselves, the state of affairs now, transitioning to the state where we are going to really focus on ESG issues, again, must be driven by leadership and sustained by leadership. It's leadership that drives change, and it is leadership that initiates sometimes the requisite change that will take us to the destination we want. So when it comes to the issue of the role of leadership in the ESG, it cannot be overemphasized, especially the world we find ourselves in, the volatility. The first speaker indicated the Russian war that we are experiencing, its impact. Recently, there was a spill, the gas pipeline in Europe. There was, whether it's a sabotage attack or whatever it is, there was a test. All that gas went into the marine environment, or the maritime environment. The effect on the fishery, the fish, or the fishes, or the maritime, resources. Your guess is as good as mine. We are in a state where volatility, the uncertainty, and the complexity that surrounds our world today means that a little impact on the environment, a little impact on the socio-economic activity, and the health of the human being impact greatly. So there is a reason, every reason why leadership must play a role. When we talk about environmental issues, they come in the form of direct and indirect impacts on us. The activities are spelled out earlier, the Galamsey minister was saying. The stewardship of the natural resources we have boils down again to leadership. The various operations of our businesses, how are they impacting on the environment? These are issues that is deemed very critical, and they are one of the critical things that we need to look at. So your firm's overall resilience when it comes to the fiscal climate risk as enumerated, temperatures are rising. Europe has experienced so much temperatures. We are experiencing flooding, we are experiencing pollution of our water bodies and all that, just because of what? The activities that our businesses carry out. And then the social issues have to do with the stakeholder management, the human capital. How are we building capacity of people? How are we relating with the communities? How are we making communities understand the impact of our operations? If you take the oil and gas industry, the upstream industry, for example, the relationship they have, the world today has moved away from that stage where it's just about providing some facilities for the community and that is about it. It's about educating them as well to understand how the activities of the oil and gas industry impact on their livelihood, the marine or the maritime space that they operate in. So for example, you see a multinational company like Talon not just going to the community to build, our usual and popular example, KVIP, and say we have provided some stakeholder support system. No, they go beyond that and even train the fishermen on responsible fishing, where they don't need the kind of equipment they need to use, the kind of resources they need to use. That is what we're talking about. So when we talk about ESG, those are some of the things that relates to the social. The management of partners. The first speaker indicated also when you outsource your operations, how do you monitor? How do you know that the partner is operating responsibly in order to, limit the impact on the environment? These are issues that bother on the social aspect of the ESG principal component. Now, when it comes to governance issues as well relate to the issue of how the controls we put in place, the process, the procedures, the systems in place, the leadership, how leadership manages affairs of the company. How leadership proceeds in ensuring that these frameworks are fully implemented. So when it comes to sustainability, therefore, we know that a better understanding and effective utilization and implementation of the ESG framework is what will guarantee organizational and risk and opportunities, full implementation of it. Without understanding the basic principles governing the ESG framework, it is impossible for leaders to get to where they want to get to, or to demonstrate to all of us that we have what it is. So it goes beyond just hearing about ESG. We need to understand the fundamentals, which I have spelled out. Now, again, so sustainability is a responsibility of leadership. Leadership cannot be taken out of the equation. Leadership must ensure shareholders understand the issues of impact on the society, on the environment, and all that. So let's proceed to touch briefly on the critical roles. Now, company is operating for profits. Indeed, we are in for profit. Every company desires to make profit. But how do you make that profit? Are you making the profit at the expense of the environment or the society, as we are experiencing now, and government is struggling to deal with because of some of the recalcitrant nature of some of our stakeholders? So leaders must adopt and enforce the environmental impact assessment strategies and plan in all the organizational units. For some multinational companies today, they want to see your impact assessment report and the strategy or the plan that you have in mitigating the impact before they have a business development. So a leader of a company or organization, you must be conscious of that and you must enforce it. That's the rule. It cannot be detached. So leaders must be seen enforcing the impact assessment strategy and plan at all times. The stakeholder relationship management that I spoke about in the communities, the staff. We're talking about relationship between even employees. What is the relationship between the leaders across board in the organization that ensures that at all times the consciousness of ESG framework is paramount? Those are the things leaders must focus on. Adoption and strict adherence to professional corporate governance standards across all levels. Corporate governance standards. They say that I am the leader of the organization or the business, so this is what I want. This is what must be done, and that is it. All leaders are ready to comply themselves with the very rules or procedures set in place. Leaders are that way. Corporate governance standards require that we subject ourselves to scrutiny at all times, be it at the leadership level or the team level. Again, leaders must also be seen promoting a culture of learning, or what I call learning organization, where creativity, innovation is the order of the day. So that there are better ways at doing certain things than sticking to the status quo. More often than not in our country, this is how we've been doing it. So don't come and disrupt the process for us. If you build a culture of learning and innovation within your organization, you will be shocked at how much savings you can even make. Talks about profitability through savings. Some innovations or creative ways of doing things can bring about these savings. So leaders must be seen promoting the culture of learning within the organizations. Today, we are inundated with so much technology, so many apps to do so many things. We don't need to physically be on the ground to see certain things happen. How are leaders adopting and utilizing this, ever-growing technology that is available to us? Technology must be for us, should not be against us. We develop every day because we want to improve our well-being. So technology must be used to do that. Leaders must embrace technology. Then training and capacity building. We are here. Majority of us here are leaders of businesses. What are we doing to build capacity of our team members? It's a role we have to play. It is not about you acquiring the knowledge and keeping it to yourself. You must build capacity of other people as well to be able to carry on. You know? And then the issue of, when it comes to capacity building, we look at it that, okay, what kind of training are we going to get and obtain certificates? My personal position is that the issue is not about getting certificates. The issue is about understanding the issues and utilizing the knowledge for something impactful. That is what it is about. Our part of the world is becoming too much for us. So people go looking for ways. So we are going for ESG, discovery leadership in ESG stuff. So this is my certificate. That is all about what can you do? That's the capacity. So when we are building capacity, we should make sure that it impacts on the people very well. Mentorship and succession planning. Leaders have so much passion to achieve a lot with regards to sustainability of the business. But more often than not, we fail to build a succession plan. Who takes over from you? May not understand really the vision. We need to get people mentored to understand that indeed these are issues that will keep the business going. The role of business leaders is very crucial in this battle that we are taking up. Discovery leadership and Paragon has taken up to our doorstep. We need to know that it's only leaders who are able to handle complex and rapidly changing environment we find ourselves in. That can be sustained productivity and performance. If you don't understand the environment we find ourselves in today, I'm sorry, it's difficult to understand all the things that we're talking about. Statistically, we are not doing well at all. The impact on our society is so enormous. We need to change the way we do business. We need to change the way we lead our businesses towards sustainability. On that note, I believe that I have set the tone for further discussion on the topics for today. Thank you very much. And God bless you.
Before I introduce our next speaker, I'd like to say a very big thank you to Madam Isabella Nana Ichan Asante, the Chair of Midwifery Council of Ghana. Thank you so much. And also, we are in the breast cancer week, so I'd like to say a very big thank you to you for the great job you are doing with Embrace Society. Madam Isabella is very passionate about educating us on preventive ways of breast cancer. I'd like to say a very big thank you to her. So introducing Honorable Dr. Henry Kokofu. I'm sure Honorable is very well known to all of us here, a very astute governance strategist. And I don't want to say a politician, because he's a leader to all. So I don't want to use that word. So Honorable Dr. Henry Kokofu, a lawyer, so we say ESCOM, is the Executive Director of Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, and the lead body that oversees and governs Ghana's environment. So you can tell that it's a very important discussion we are having here, and we cannot have any other person than him. Without much I say, I would like to say a very big thank you to you, Honorable, and we welcome you to speak to us on ESG. Thank you so much, Honorable.
Thank you, Dr. Jelly, for the sweet words. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. Good morning, the media. Whenever they want so much, they expect so much from you, then they will give you all their points. And then put the pressure on you. So I know the strategy that Dr. Jelly is employed. My colleagues, speakers, I find you a bit intimidating, because you are the experts. And once the expert speaks, you are able to go wayward.
I'll try as much as possible this Friday morning, this important encounter, to be as practical as possible. I personally feel enough of the lectures, the theoretical, and all. So I was happy with the last words of the last speaker when he said the knowledge matters. So I want to
Ghanaian Times, front page. Here, you can see my good sound here. Says MMDC face sanctions over environmental degradation. And he said they are saying that I said it. So I own that statement. And if you read that, most probably you get a lot of things that we're talking about or in writing. It's nothing but calling out leadership at the level of our districts, municipal, and metropolitan assembly. Leading environmental change and coping with business disruptions through ESG compliance framework. And there are key things to be noted, and we want to, as it were, put on the banner for discussions or serve as food for thought. What are the leading environmental changes or challenges? How is EPA addressing these critical impacts of environmental change on society and Ghana? And in this context, businesses. What policy frameworks have been designed or are looking forward to be adopted or adopted to lead these environmental change efforts? Then, how do we address the critical environmental issues and the impacts of businesses and the economy? So how do we address the challenges of business disruptions through environmental change factors? Then how do we reduce environmental risk across business? What kinds of engagement objectives would you recommend? In other words, from ED's standpoint, the expectations that we may recommend to business leaders to communicate to ensure ESG risk is managed. The third, and most probably the most important of all, adopting ESG policy framework. To outline some competitive advantages businesses have for remaining ESG compliant. And you are given a space like this, and you have addressed some of these questions. By the time you finish, you should be awarded ESG straight away. Mr. Chairman, invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, environmental, social, and governance has emerged as much more than a responsibility. It is an opportunity to build a more sustainable businesses and a key differentiator to enhance relevance and trust with organization stakeholders. But strategically, an ESG program creates valuable impact within organizations, communities, and for the planet for years to come. Environmental, social, and governance goals are objectives set within a business in order to direct and actively manage the organization's impact on society and environmental sustainability. So therefore, ESG at its core is a corporate governance and investment framework. What this means in practice is companies that adopt ESG principles consider, measure, report the environmental, social, and governance aspects of their business alongside these financial considerations. Likewise, ESG investors consider a company's environmental, social, and governance attributes alongside their financial attributes when deciding whether or not to invest in them. Socially responsible investment involves choosing or is qualifying investments based on specific ethical criteria. Impact investments aims to have a business organization produce a social benefit. So investors are increasingly applying these non-financial factors as part of their analysis process to identify material risks and growth opportunities. A strong and meaningful ESG program can set a vision for an organization's environmental and societal influence, providing value both internally and externally. Policymakers are accelerating processes to strengthen practices with respect to sustainable finance in several ways, including taxonomies, to clarify meaning. These disclosures of ESG in both corporate and financial service sectors, disclosures of ESG fund products, rating agency and benchmarks ESG disclosures. Policy development across Europe, US, and Japan, and elsewhere offers some examples of distinct ways in which steps are being considered to make ESG practices more transparent, consistent, and resilient. These countries have identified some key issues for consideration, and these include ensuring relevance and consistency in reporting frameworks for ESG disclosure, capacity of the subjective elements of ESG scoring, improving alignment with materiality and performance, overcoming the market bias, transparency on ESG products alignment with investors' sustainable finance objectives, related to financial and social returns, and public and regulatory engagement. And on this bit, you find EBA strongly there as a regulator. EPA is a state institution brought to life by Act 490 of 1984 and has an enabling legislature in LI 2 of 1999 that deals with environmental assessment regulations. And in Schedule 1 and 2, you find a list of activities, business ventures that requires environmental protection agency license or permits. And numbers over 40. Virtually it covers everything. I always say there's only one thing that's left out. Maybe you may have to ask the president and parliament to add it on for us to complete. That will make EPA the headmaster overall. And that's why we need EPA that 2 million guy. And the day you now at one if your marriage is not well and it's impacting negatively on the environment, then you can have the power to regulate. I don't know if that's how it works. However, EPA, there is functions and mandates, has the authority to co-manage the fiscal environment with other stakeholders, including businesses and all of us that we find ourselves in. And indeed, the law takes its roots from the 1992 Constitution, Article 36, right? That has been, it's going to be my favorite quotation. I don't see why. The shortest provision in the Constitution, Article 41 of the Constitution. Simple. Citizens are to protect and safeguard the environment. So when we talk about environmental governance,
that feeds into social and governance systems proper. It means we are all being called upon. One on the first arm is the state, the other is the citizen. So the responsibility is there. So we zero into proper environmental conditions that we find ourselves globally, then Ghana as a nation. And that is the almighty climate change. It has become a reality much faster than all scenarios predicted. Climate change is not just an environmental issue, as believed earlier on. It is an all-encompassing threat to our very existence and to the socio-economic aspects of life. Storms, droughts, and rising sea levels are big signs of what we are currently facing. And these are practical. These are the best. Some 2 weeks back, I was in the U.S. from New York to Washington and all that, and the conversation I think they say, talking about climate change, climate finance. So at the point in time, businesses stood at ease, i.e. the private sector. They are asking the contribution of the private sector, for that matter, businesses towards financing climate initiatives. More importantly, on the program of actions within the national determined contributions that seem to address the mitigation and adaptation of climate change. So this is a very, very important point. Maybe that's why that's what motivated me to come this morning, so that the conversation will be carried out onto businesses, the responsibilities that unfortunately, it is not that state institutions like EPA and the entire climate change architecture have not critically involved the private sector and businesses acting off the hand. But this is an opportunity time. Soon we'll be going for COP27 meetings, and we'll be extending hands to institutions like the SOC, this one that have the leverage to bring together captains of industry and businesses, so we can all share in that scope of knowledge and contribute and contribute. Ladies and gentlemen, developing countries like Ghana are suffering disproportionately, and if the global community continues at this pace of implementing climate actions, then the incidences of extreme rainfall patterns, flooding, and excessive drought is going to escalate. And this is a the science is complete. There is no doubt. The science is established that the world, if you go beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius, somewhere 2050 as has been predicted, we are all heading towards it. Climate change is seen as a central pillar of ESG. ESG investment is an effective tool to address climate change. And this is a critical point. ESG investment helps to promote a healthy environment, social responsibility, and good governance. These 3 things, one, social, healthy environment, you find leadership there. Social responsibility, you find leadership. And good governance, you find leadership. So the good governance aspect, politicians stand for, and then the public and civil servant that runs the public institutions are all on to it. The social responsibility, what has the individuals got to do? What has we have by way of responsibility? And that's what Article 41K of the Constitution talks about. And that is for businesses and for individuals to look at that. So at this point, what am I doing? Please, before I leave, try and find the differences between leader, boss, and manager. I want the university, if you can help me. Because Winston Churchill was deemed to be, Winston Churchill, a former prime minister of UK, was at one point deemed to be a hero and a great leader during the wartime, the Second World War. Soon after the Second World War, he was deemed to be a very bad leader in peacetime. And so his party and himself were voted out of office. So the bad leader and the good leader were the same person within the scope of time. What happened? And what is it? What are the conditions? So that's an assignment for you. We are finding ways where we're giving the lecturers and the doctors assignments instead of giving the students continuously solving. Ladies and gentlemen, a company could have a completely carbon neutral, zero waste, renewable powered manufacturing facility. But if that facility is widely dangerous to work in from a workplace health and safety standpoint, i.e., employees are getting injured on the job all the time, the company still isn't meeting its ESG obligations. Despite, again, achieving environmental sustainability on paper. So here we are bringing in the human factor, the key component to all business ventures and all that, and that is the human resource capital. Very, very important in this conversation. ESG is typically more relevant for large companies who are listed on public investment exchanges or who need financing from institutional investors. However, as small banks and financial services firms themselves adopt ESG principles around their businesses, ESG is also increasingly becoming more material to startups and smaller organizations. So on the top you find the multinational companies that at the point in time form JVs with local entities, or local entities themselves forming partnerships among themselves. And so you have the large, medium, and small businesses structures. All need some form of financial injections at one point in time. And the banks will require ESG. My last meeting with World Bank in Washington, I think today's Friday, Wednesday's week. One of the things we agreed on was to collaborate with EPA and then have training sessions for consultants that will be upgraded to World Bank standards. And in the conversation, ESG was very, very critical. So very soon, EPA will be undertaking sessions. So we really want to reach out to this organization for some form of resource application when the time comes. Mr. Chairman, I will conclude by saying, while ESG is gaining momentum, it's still an evolving landscape, which is difficult to assess, implement, and manage programs in an organization. That's a setback. I would like to assure all of us gathered here that whether you are looking to expand on existing ESG efforts or you are just getting started, we will all get there one day with that sort of thing. There is a need to gain an understanding of the organization, your culture, and your strategy, and develop an ESG foundation, point of view, and guiding principles. Focus on the elements that matter most to you and your stakeholders. Thank you very much for your attention.
Chief Executive Officer of Environmental Protection Agency, Honorable Dr. Kwabena Kukufu. Please a round of applause for him. Charging our experts to practically go out there and make the changes that must be done concerning ESG. So our experts, you have been charged to practically make it happen. So before we leave here, one or two things that you can tell all of us so that we can start right away. Then that will ripple out to the rest of the world that we all belong to. I'm talking about our various communities. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, we will continue with our panel discussion.
Leaders do not focus on the present. Leaders do not focus on the mutual benefits of the entire team they are managing or they are leading, and the society or the community they are operating as well. So it's a holistic, comprehensive approach to doing things when it comes to leadership. Managers are often described as people who manage fiscal or who are able to utilize fiscal resources to achieve their goals. Leaders tend to focus more on humanity or human capital. Managers focus more on material resources, how those material resources will enable them to achieve their goals. But leaders look beyond those material resources and encompass their actions or their actions as well. Bosses focus more on authority that comes with their position as leaders or managers. So they tend to come across as people who know it all. Nobody can give them feedback or negative. They want to hear what people want to. They hate criticism and all that. So being bossy, obviously you are not open to any feedback that does not sit well with your own posture. So bosses are often seen as feared rather than being motivators or inspirers of their team members. Why Winston Churchill experienced that was because at the time of the war, everybody was looking out for decisive action in order to come out or to be victorious. That he did, forgetting that right after the war, there are other things because the repercussions of war or the consequences has other, lasting effects on the people, the very people who were hating you when you were fighting on their behalf. In all what we do, I prefer all of us to not even focus on leadership, to move beyond leadership into what I describe as strategic leadership with focus. Strategic leadership with focus. That is what is driving the world today. The world needs strategic leaders who are visionaries, who are foresight, far into the future. All of us today sit in our country, talk about, we admire leaders across the globe. Dubai, our favorite place. 50 years ago, we knew where we were. We took a group of them to come together and realize that, look, we cannot afford to remain where we are. We have what it takes to compete with the world. And at that time, it's amazing how they all agreed. They were different, they were independent, so to speak, kingdoms. But they saw that the vision ahead will benefit all of them. That is what I spoke about, as leaders having foresight. They agreed, they used both material resources and human resources. And today, there's nowhere in the scheme of things as a global economic activity that you cannot talk about Dubai. That is visionary. That is foresight, and that is where we need to focus on. Not to be managers of things or managers of material resources, not to be bosses exercising authority, where in Ghana, I will specifically say in Ghana, where we are so conscious of the authority that comes with the positions we occupy that we need to come down to the bottom or down to earth with everybody to understand that the least person may offer a suggestion that will take us out of our situation. So, thank you very much.
Just to add a little to the tax that Honorable gave us. Actually, when you look at how things are happening,
And then in terms of sustainability, when you study leadership theories and practice, we've moved to a stage that we call situational leadership. What that means is that the action that we need to actually take now is dependent on the happening. We were using charcoal, and so we're all buying charcoals and we're using them. The issue is that we need to avoid the deforestation. And so if you were a leader at the time and you were encouraging deforestation at the time, obviously we are going to vote you out just like the church. The situational leadership is actually what we want. Sustainability. And so obviously is not what we want. Managers always managing the resources and just focusing on just achieving the bottom line is not what we want. But then we are looking to actually act based on the situation. Look at what we call situational leadership. That is what we want. So if you're a leader and you are still living in the past, then you have a long way to go. Environment. We are killing our own self. We are focusing as businesses, we are focusing on making the profits, and we are also creating and causing havoc in the environment. And so we post a huge profit doing so well, and at the end of the day, we have people falling ill, and then there's pressure on the medical system. Then we stand aside and complain and as it were, blame the government, and say that when you go to Kolebu, there are no beds. When you go to here, people can't get a place to stay or sleep, a bed to sleep on. What are we doing? We actually have forgotten that we actually created the situation. And so we are not being responsible enough. We are not being sustainability conscious. And so the time is now for us to actually go back to what we call the situational leadership. Anything that is destroying the environment, we need to avoid that. If you are a leader in an organization and if the activities of the organization is such that it's destroying the environment, then obviously you are not being responsible. And so, ladies and gentlemen, the time to act is now.
What do you do? Because of the political comments, oh, when you write the same law, oh, allow me. In the long run, we all go to suffer. We come and sit here and say, oh, we blame government, we blame this. Let's blame ourselves. The decision should start from us. It should start from us. It shouldn't be just lip service. Leadership by example. Let's examine our conscience. We are not creating employment and sustainable employment. And when people are hungry, they tend to do whatever it takes to make them survive. We started mining before I was born. Way back. Why don't you have this made this until now? The landers will guide the people to build in the waterways. When the police come, they fight them. We sit here, we can sit and talk. Let's start with us, ourselves. Let our conscience.
Thank you very much. Can we have one or two to also? Okay.
I think the last speaker intervention answers part of the question. Businesses want to thrive and they want to survive and be sustained amidst getting their investment back at some point. So then the question of regulation comes in compliance, enforcement and all that. Because your business definitely has some form of environmental impact, so we need to be regulated and all that. So the challenges comes upon when people refuse deliberately, attitudinally, refuses to comply with the rules and regulations. That's one aspect of it. It also comes when institutions, example my own, refuses to live up to expectations by way of delivering that public service to support and augment the venture running. So we at EPA have identified a lot of institutional weaknesses. within our own sector. And critical among them has to do with the uncoordinated aspect of the various institutions, stakeholders that have to come. For instance, we have a list of institutions that can be protection agency. We are supposed to be the watchman or the watchdog for environmental integrity and sanity. The man here goes, the miner, the processes he goes through to obtain your license before you become go into the field to mine. The process starts with criminal commission, goes through all that, you get your concession signed by the minister, environmental papers. At that point, you spend close to 2 years going around the circles and all that. By the time you come to EPA, you are holding. So EPA is called upon to look at your ABCD, and then all you can do is to point out the environmental consent, potential environmental damages that may come, and then we apply conditions to the benefit.
Ghana is not Accra.
Thank you.
When we travel out of Accra, there's so many things. How did China become a superpower? 20, 30 years, 40 years, who goes to China? For what? They started industrialization. They started growing their industries. I'm not always in China, but I like practicality. All the things I say are things I do. China, the quantity to print out is about 100,000. That capacity. So if government even decides that, okay, let's use uniforms, they don't have the capacity. What's happening? They are always importing. Because of politics, there is no government that will say, today, I'm putting my foot down. We are consuming Ghana rice. There's nothing coming from outside. What we do is to create employment. Then it will teach the people in the industry ways of refining, making the rice better, having perfume rice, comparably to what we import. Yeah, we import everything. We've killed the poultry industry. We've done everything. We import more rather than going feeding is very expensive. So most industries are there. Let's consume. Let's start. That's why I said it starts with us. You know, you are talking book, I'm talking practicality. That's the reality. Because in the old system, they were not so educated as we have now. We didn't have internet, we didn't have, now everything, somebody just Google, somebody's whole life is this. In the old time, we didn't have that. But we're eating healthy. Go to the village, look at our parents. They just go to the farm. They eat fresh. We will eat what? Preserved foods. Processed. Let's close. I'm just giving this thing to him. Sometimes it's not him. I'm not talking to him as a person. He sees. See, let's not play this thing. You know, sometimes impact 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and then what happens? That's not the agenda. The agenda now says, do it. And it's reluctant he has to do it. Sometimes you call him to come and answer, you cannot do anything about it. So it's us, it still comes back to us. Let's revisit our values. When we see somebody drop something, call the person. Please choke, get the water with choke, and we have flat in every area. So it still boils down to us. Thank you very much.
My question goes to Dr. Abbey. As I sit here, listen to find out, do you have any strategies, any plans for the TVET industry? When I say TVET industry, I'm looking at the ordinary carpenter, the hairdresser, the plumber, the electrician. Since you're talking about ESG, do you have any plans? What was the future plans for the TVET industry? Thank you very much.
For me, the need for leadership to transcend every level cannot be overemphasized. So I'll give you an example, not to pick you on the spot. if you are clamping down on galamsey and you go and you burn a machine, now the average cost of, let's say, an excavator, I don't even want to talk about bulldozer, it's about $250,000 US. The essence, I mean, burning that machine simply means it's just like you having $250,000 in a box and putting fire in there. Now the impact on that is not just on your currency, but also on the environment, because you are going to produce cocoa to go and have your effects and all that. So in actual fact, you are still affecting the environment. The metal that has to be used elsewhere to produce the same machine and all that. But the point here is that if the military man going there, if the person appointed to make sure this clampdown is that understands the ESGs that we are talking about, can easily challenge and say, let's go seize them rather, use them for other economic activities, rent them to the big mines or the authorized mines and gain state money rather than burning them. This for me is a typical example of how this ESG has to go everywhere, go into the military, the police, officers at EPE, whoever. So that even if the president is giving an instruction that burning it is environmentally dangerous. I mean, I'm just using that as a case in point for every other. I mean, it goes to using bottled water and all that. All these serious problems that if people come with innovations that can help us prevent more usage of these could actually help. So that's just what I wanted to say. Yeah.
It's true that we all have a sense of responsibility, but I do believe that not everyone's a leader. I'm actually working on an application that we talked about leadership, and you said something that resonated with me. It's asking what kind of leader I wanted to be. And you said leadership is about being strategic and focused. We can't all be that. I believe personality matters, and training also matters. I'm in healthcare. I know the challenges in the healthcare system, but you can walk into an institution and right away you know that there's leadership there. The environment, how the nurses operate. So I think that we all have a role. I don't think everybody is a leader, but we need as a nation to start training and identifying our leaders. We don't even know what a leader is. I'm striving, for me a leader has to be confident. And I've been striving to find on the tree language a word that is similar to leader that is positive. Everything I can think of is something, I think we need to start grooming leaders. You can make a difference. I don't necessarily that make a change. And to talk about the mindset change, what I lived in the US most of my life, moved back to Ghana. I see when nurses, the same so-called terrible nurses that we have in Ghana, when they get to the US, what's the difference? It's accountability. For me, if we have leaders who are not afraid, so I think that we need to focus on letting leadership be a part of our family from primary. Identifying the individuals and grooming them. Then you can have your leaders, you can have your bosses, you can have your workers, but we all come together because we're all held accountable for our actions.
Madam just said it's something needs to be inculcated us from the very beginning, from our home, churches, everything. And it's so surprising that everybody wants to come out of the house clean, neatly dressed, impeccably. I mean, white shirts and all the t-shirts and all that, out of the house. But the surroundings, the physical surroundings that he or she finds himself or herself, that's what care. I just came from Togo, Kinshasa, and we do travel from the airport to the city center. You feel like Ghana is heaven, honestly. But you coming from Dubai, you coming from US,
UK, and you get to the kind of international for Ghana is like hell. So at one point in time, you are in heaven, another point in time, depending on the priorities and everything. So yes, environmental thinking and education and everything is for everybody. Particularly if you are a leader in an institution like an organization, you must show and you must have it. So others can follow. That is why environmental scientists like me, natural resource person like me, branch into various areas. When we are talking law, talking environment, when we are talking business, talking environment, when we are talking, trust me, one of my meetings, the gate was sitting there, John Kerry, all the bishops, sitting there on the table, all talking about climate change and climate finance. So let's face it. Okay, we have a lot of activities. But my senior colleague talked about something. Yes, it's true. These nations and all that, China, Singapore, Malaysia, Dubai, and all that. The important thing is we always have a reference point. You say 20 years ago, Dubai wasn't what it was. 30 years ago, even in the United States and all that, we have economies that are as old as, democracies that are as old as anything. We are 64 years. You might think it's old enough, it is not. United States is about 300 years democracy. UK, and if you read history, on the streets of London, there was a point in time, people would simply duplicate and make their waste and all that, open the window and then drop them on the street. It has happened before in UK. There's a documentary that shows Singapore some 30 years back. They were just a small community, fishermen, everybody doing anything anyhow. But some crop of people emerged from that, what they saw as a mess. They emerged, came up as leaders and said, no, this nonsense must stop. Forgive my word. This must stop. But this is the direction we don't do. And that is the leadership we're talking about. The Malaysian man is on League One. They are there to be and all that. So we are struggling as a nation. The good news is we cannot throw our hands in despair. We are committed to getting things done. We will surely get there. But the pace at which we are moving is much, much, much slower. Those of us who are as young as 60, 65 years, we know traveling from Kumasi to Accra, the kind of route we travel, traveling from Kumasi to Sudan, we do know. We know what Makola looks like. We know what the kind of International Airport looks like. We know what Kolebu, whatever. There have been some tremendous improvements in infrastructure and all that. Even in our own human development sector. How many of us here wouldn't want to make a reference? When I was young going to school, I was going to school barefooted. You tell your child, William try you will carry you go share papa. You go school now. So there have been some kind of improvements on that. But that is not where we want to be. We want to go beyond and faster at that. So it boils down to leadership. Some people, but of all that, a leader must be selfless completely. Once you are selfless, you're thinking about the larger picture, the good of the group. So move on. May God help Ghana.
As a nation, we can pollute all our water bodies.
Yes.
I want to find out EPA. Is EPA, I mean, is there a system in place? Can EPA look at what happened at the port? How did the cartoons come in? Is there a check? What is EPA doing so that we can't have such a mess? Do you have the powers? Are you strong enough to to lift up your voice and say the people who are brought in, okay, the people who come into the nation can't come and create such a mess.
Yes, you can talk about it, and you can do everything, but the expense of travel, governance is something that is integrated. Those are the trade and the businessman will tell you you are killing our industry, you are doing this. The poor boy there who thinks that is a source of employment, you also be talking about. You see, the truth is, resources are meant for the people and to be exploited and developed. Unfortunately, all major countries, particularly countries in Africa, who are developing countries and who are resource endowed, are those that are suffering and poor. So the question is why? Resource allocation, who gets us? Who do any idea? Why does it do? So the capacity of indigenous and locals to undertake responsible resource exploitation is the aim. So the foreigner or the international company, the multinational companies who have built their capacities and everything will come in and then get the license, get to the place and start exploiting. And the people will be happy now. My company, and you are company be or you're responsible or you way of making sure the all things when they say. So you are torn between your own people taking advantage of the natural resources as against the multinationals that they want to come in and help. It abounds. Examples, Ogunila, the Sarua case, Niger Delta, Shell, and other. It abounds. And that is where you get resource curse on your hands. So, if you don't take it, if you don't take it, then 15, 20 years to come, you will have oil guarantee on our hands. Because the taste of this country is endowed with crude oil. So the possibility of exploiting crude onshore is as great as anything. We call it protein base from Qatar up to Cape Town or thereabout, all up. So once development or exploitation takes place, you can imagine one village will be encountered there, will be drilling oil there, and somebody somewhere will just go and punch a hole on the pipe, and you also be tapping the soil there and all that. And that pipe will be influenced. I'm happy, I'm okay, that at least if for nothing, the national consciousness has been awakened. For nothing. We are now all talking about environmental degradation now. Trust me, 10, 15, 20 years ago, who cares? I'm a taxi driver, I'm a medical doctor, I'm a teacher. And somebody is taking somewhere for his road, do I care? People care. So the consciousness and the awakening was left with some few people who did not have voice that time. Environmental scientists are shouting, hey, go be able to you, and see, I was saying, who cares? But today, led by the media, the entire nation is now fully awakened. And that alone is a plus. Let us build on that platform. I know we'll get solutions to these things. We will soon get them. One or two big fishes will be caught, jailed, and that will be there. Thank you.
If we understand ESG issues, definitely to reflect in our activities at the corporate level as well. By organizing this summit, I think it's a very good beginning. I will urge the organizers to replicate such things not only in Accra but other parts of the country, especially remote places. As Mr. Vanderpool said, Accra is no longer a lot of things are happening that are contributing to where we are today. If we take the Galamsey thing, the water pollution here in Accra, but everything will boil down. The water will come down to Accra, and we will suffer it more. The village folks somehow are eating well, they are eating cream and all that. They may survive better than us. We are so vulnerable. So let's take the campaign out of Accra to the remote places as well, so that we can, even if it will mean doing it in the local language, for them to understand it better. Because sometimes we come across as people who only can speak the Queen's language and that is it, and they don't care about that. They think these are just book-long people saying what they have to say. So let's drill it down to the local level, and with that, I think we'll go places. Because the general perception is that, especially where we think these people, they just come and talk, as the other person. It's all about talk. We can equally infuse it with some practical videos or simulations for people to actually appreciate what exactly we're talking about. So we can have case study videos for such presentations, so that appreciation of the impact on of the activities of company A and that of company B. Then the difference. Visual learning is more and far appreciated than just the talking part of it. Well done to the organization. Very good. You deserve an applause.
I think the practicality bit that you mentioned is very important. That I actually checked. The MC actually introduced me and was like, oh, he's a doctor, he has a PhD. And there was a man sitting there and was like, for these book-long people. But fortunately, the MC happened to know that I had done more than 20 years in the industry. And so I was not only going to talk of theories, but then the practical is very important. In terms of TVET, I actually wrote a proposal on training the school dropouts, the artisans, and co. And then we're just trying to do something with USAID. It hasn't actually materialized. So maybe we can take it from there to see how we can actually support the TVET. Because like my colleague said, when it comes to training them, we need to reduce the grammar, the plenty talk, and actually add the visuals and just to help them. Because we can't build Ghana alone. Sometimes when we speak all the grammar, we think that, oh, we are fine. Yesterday I was telling my brother that you're a professor, when it comes to voting, you have only one vote. And the man that you don't regard also has one vote. So what are you talking about? Everybody is important. So we need the inclusiveness in this discussion. And it's very important. And I think also what I want to add is that it's so clear that we need change agents. There are some discussions that, it's theories that has been taking place some time ago in terms of discussions, and then it was like, are leaders born or made? To be honest with you, those of you with children, once you look at your children, you see a leader in them. There are others too, you need to train them. And everybody is important. We need to include everybody in this discussion. There are some people, you employ them and you can go to sleep. There are others that when you are working with them, you must constantly be in touch with them. Have you put on the what do we call it, the computer? Have you shut your PC? There are others too, you are okay to go. So this is where we need to actually look at. We need to get to a point to say that this is enough. Enough is enough. We are killing our own self without knowing. Sometimes we just throw anything into the sea, forgetting that we go to Mokola, where do we buy the fish? You go to Kadeshi Market to go and buy the fish. You go to Jamestown to go and buy the fish. And so we are good. When we see people doing anything to the marine world, we are okay. But then we wake up the next day and we are hungry and we go to Jamestown to buy the same toxic that we threw into the marine world. And that is what we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, we all need to be responsible as far as the ESG discussion is concerned. Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for the organizers.
It's already afternoon, it's almost 12 o'clock, and minutes to 12 o'clock, so we are grateful to you. Before we wrap up, I'd like to acknowledge our sponsors once more. Joscom Group. Please a round of applause for them. And when it comes to our media partners, we have Business and Financial Times. Please, let's give it. GTV, Metro TV. We are grateful for this wonderful sponsors, starting with us with the maiden edition of the ESG Leadership Summit. Well, it's time to listen or to call for the final remarks. But before that, let's just give me a minute. Madam Genevieve is a little bit MIA. I have no idea where she's gone to, but I'm sure that our lady will go get her so that she can do the final remarks. And then our very able pastor who started with us will beautifully close the ceremony so that we can continue with our Friday. Today's Friday, thank God it's Friday.